Hello everyone. It's so nice to see you all again in today's video. Today I'm going to tell you a sad yet deeply emotional story about the life of a young woman named lytudiep. Backhand index pointing right. I hope you'll spend some meaningful and heartfelt moments with me as you listen to this story. Lytudiep was born in a peaceful little countryside village. As a child, she grew up surrounded by her parents' love, believing she would enjoy a happy childhood like any other child. But a cruel twist of fate soon led her life down a painful, tragic path. Lytudiep's mother sadly passed away when she was still very young. That loss left a deep wound in her heart. Not long after, her father remarried another woman, the one Lytudiep would call her stepmother. From that moment on, her life completely changed. Broken heart, the stepmother never showed any love or kindness toward Lytudiep. She was cruel, petty, and constantly looked for ways to mistreat and oppress her. On top of that, Lytudiep's half-sister would often join their stepmother to bully her, forcing Lytudiep to do all the housework by herself. Every day, while other children her age were going to school to learn, Lytudiep had to wake up at dawn to work and earn money to support the family. She was forced to wash clothes, cook, farm, and was even made to beg on the streets, under the shameless excuse that begging earns money more easily. Her father, once the only person she could rely on, slowly sank into alcoholism after remarrying. He became distant and neglectful. Day after day, he drowned himself in alcohol, no longer caring about the suffering his daughter endured. Clad with rain from a sweet, innocent little girl, Lytudiep's life turned into a long, dark chain of painful days. Every day, she dragged her tired little feet through village paths and market alleys, begging for a few coins. On scorching hot days or when there were few people around, she sometimes earned barely enough to buy a stale loaf of bread. As soon as she stepped through the door, before she could even catch her breath, her stepmother and stepsister would rush at her like wild beasts. "Why did you get so little money, you useless girl? You must be hiding some, aren't you?" Before she could explain, they would search her from head to toe, her shirt pockets, trouser pockets, even the ragged handkerchief she kept. Humiliation and frustration built up inside her, but she didn't dare fight back. Every time she spoke up, merciless beatings would follow, as if they were taking out all their anger on her. Wilted flour. Even after wandering the streets all day begging for money, Lytudiep still had to rush into the kitchen to cook, clean, and serve her stepmother and stepsister. Meanwhile, they lay lazily on the bamboo bed, eating and scrolling on their phones, laughing as if the exhausted girl in the dark kitchen didn't exist. If a dish was slightly too salty, a bowl of soup cooled down, or she said something they didn't like, her stepmother would drag her out to curse and beat her, blaming her for everything. "How could you even cook something this bad? Aren't you ashamed? Useless thing. Feeding you is a waste of rice." Milky Way. At night, when everyone else was asleep, Lytudiep would sit quietly in the corner of the kitchen, hugging her knees and crying silently. Tears streamed down her face, smudged with ash. No one knew about the deep, invisible wounds in her heart, wounds caused by her own family. That day, the scorching sun beat down mercilessly. Lytudiep, now 24 years old, sat silently at her usual corner of the market, holding a chipped little bowl in her hands. Her tired eyes watched people hurrying by. All morning, she managed to collect only a few small bills, just enough to survive another day. People passed by in a rush, no one stopped to ask or care about the young woman being crushed by life. Just as she lowered her head in despair, a warm, deep voice spoke from behind. "Miss, why is someone as young as you begging here?" Startled, she turned around. Standing there was a young policeman, tall, with a serious yet kind expression. He walked up to her and handed her a cool bottle of water and a warm baguette. Lytudiep hesitantly accepted and lowered her head to thank him. Bread. The policeman sat down beside her, speaking gently without the contempt that others often showed. I can tell you're not a bad person. You're still young and healthy, you can work to support yourself. Begging isn't the right path. You should try finding another job, like helping in a shop, doing housework, or any honest work. Your life shouldn't stop here. His words were like a beam of light piercing through the darkness surrounding her life. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to her with such genuine kindness. On her way home, a fragile sense of hope began to stir inside her. Maybe life could change if she dared to break free. Gathering all her courage, Sam stepped into the house and softly said to her stepmother, "Mother, please allow me to work. I don't want to beg anymore." Her stepmother immediately spun around and shouted furiously, "Who do you think you are to make decisions here? In this house, your only job is to bring back money, understand? If you don't beg, how will this family survive?" She launched into a shrill tirade, her voice echoing through the yard. Sam tried to explain, but the more she spoke, the angrier her stepmother became. Finally, the woman shoved her out of the house and yelled, "Get out! You dare argue when you bring home nothing? Don't even think about coming back without money." The iron gate slammed shut in front of Sam. She was thrown out with no food and no shelter. Milky Way that night, she sat silently under a tree by the fence. Her stomach growled with hunger, and the cold wind whipped through her messy hair. Tears fell, not only from misery, but from the pain of being cast away by her own family. And yet, somewhere deep in her heart, the image of the kind policeman glimmered like a tiny flame, warming the parts of her heart that had long grown numb from pain. Sunrise dawn was just breaking. The first rays of sunlight had yet to touch the rooftops when the shrill voice of the stepmother echoed from the kitchen. Sam, get up. Eat quickly and go bring back some money." Startled, Sam woke up. She stepped outside with messy hair and sleepy eyes still heavy with the night's mist. On the table sat a cold bowl of plain white rice, not a single piece of food to go with it. Her stepmother coldly placed it in front of her and barked, "Hurry up and eat. Stop daydreaming, I need money urgently today." Wilted flour. Sam stared at the tasteless rice, her throat tightening. For years, breakfasts like this had become a routine she was forced to swallow. Tears welled up, but she held them back and quietly ate spoonful by spoonful. She knew if she didn't finish, endless scolding would follow. After eating, she silently put on her worn-out jacket and stepped out of the house. But today, she had made an important decision. Backhand index pointing right, she would no longer beg. She would try to find a real job. All morning, Sam wandered everywhere looking for work. Many people turned her away, some sneered at her poor appearance. But she didn't give up. Finally, as she passed a small woodworking shop on the edge of the market, she bravely stepped inside to ask for a job. At first, the owner hesitated. But seeing her determined eyes and respectful attitude, he decided to give her a one-day trial. She worked tirelessly, cleaning, carrying wood, helping saw and polish. Every task given to her was completed carefully and diligently, surprising everyone in the workshop. By late afternoon, the owner approached her, nodded approvingly, and said, "You did well today. Here's your pay, 200,000 VND. If you come back tomorrow, I'll find you a more stable job." Dollar banknote. Sam accepted the crisp bill with trembling hands, overwhelmed with emotion. It was the first time in years she had earned money through her own labor, not from begging in the streets. But before she could fully rejoice, fear crept in. Backhand index pointing right, she knew that returning home with this money would lead to a battle. As soon as she arrived home, her stepmother was already waiting at the gate, scowling. "Where's the money? Hand it over. Trembling, Sam pulled out the 200,000 VND bill. Upon seeing it, her stepmother's face twisted with rage. Her shrill voice rang through the courtyard. Only 200,000? You were gone all day and this is all you earned? You're hiding money, aren't you, you wretch? Before Sam could say a word, her half-sister rushed over, searching her pockets, clothes, even her scarf. Sam tried to avoid them, but they grabbed and held her down. Humiliation and shame tore through her like a knife. Her stepmother screamed, raising her hand threateningly. Are you trying to go against me? You think you can hide money from me? Clad with rain in the dim evening light, Sam stood silently, clutching the hem of her shirt, bitterness welling up in her eyes. She knew a brutal beating awaited her. But deep inside, a new determination was rising, the determination to escape this hellish house and rewrite her life. After the search, exhausted, she sat down in a corner of the yard. Her clothes were covered in dust, and her heart pounded with fear. Her only source of emotional comfort was an old photograph of her mother. Camera with flash, it was a faded, yellowing photo with frayed edges, carefully preserved in a small plastic sleeve. Whenever night fell or sorrow overwhelmed her, she would secretly take it out, gazing at it as if her mother were holding her close, drawing strength to endure life's cruelty. But just as she clutched the photo to soothe herself, her stepmother's eyes narrowed suspiciously. She stepped closer, her voice sharp and mocking. What are you hiding there? Hand it over. Panicking, Sam held the photo tightly to her chest, shaking her head. No, it's not money. It's my mother's photo. Please, don't take it. But the stepmother lunged like a predator, yanking it from her hands. Sam struggled desperately, but her strength was no match. In a horrifying instant, the woman tore the photo into pieces right in front of her, her voice venomous. Your mother's been dead for ages. What's the point of keeping this trash? Useless girl. Camera with flash sparkles, the tiny photo fragments scattered through the air and fell onto the wet ground, mingling with the first heavy raindrops. No! Sam's anguished scream pierced the rainy night. She collapsed to her knees, frantically picking up the shredded pieces with trembling hands. Rain and tears streamed down her thin face, as if the sky itself was mourning her pain. But the stepmother wasn't done. She grabbed a bamboo broom leaning against the wall and began striking Sam relentlessly. You dare defy me? I'll teach you a lesson. Collision, each blow landed painfully, leaving red welts across her back. Sam clutched the torn photo pieces tightly, crying and begging for mercy. The more she pleaded, the more the woman reveled in her cruelty. Cloud with rain, the rain grew heavier. Under the rumble of distant thunder, the 24-year-old girl knelt in the courtyard, drenched, holding the shredded photo, her heart torn into 100 pieces. Backhand index pointing right in that moment, she knew she had lost the only thing connecting her to her beloved mother, and the last emotional anchor tying her to this abusive home. Cloud with rain, the sound of pouring rain couldn't drown out Sam's choking sobs. She knelt in the cold courtyard, soaked to the skin, her trembling hands clutching the torn photo fragments of her mother as if holding on to the last remaining pieces of her memories. Her heart felt like it was being crushed, the pain surging so strongly that she couldn't make a sound. Just then, the iron gate slammed open loudly. Her father had returned after a long night of drinking. He staggered into the yard, reeking of alcohol. But when he saw Sam sitting on the wet ground, rain and tears streaming down her gaunt face, he froze. The night breeze seemed to sober him slightly. Sam. What happened to you? Who did this to you? He croaked, his voice rough as he stepped closer. Sam held the wet, torn photo fragments tightly and cried out between sobs. Dad. Stepmother, she tore it. Mom's photo, the only one I had left. Camera with flash, he froze, his gaze dropping to the scattered photo pieces on the soaked ground. His face, already flushed with alcohol, suddenly darkened. A complex look flickered in his eyes, guilt, sorrow for his daughter, and simmering rage. Unable to hold back any longer, he stormed into the house. The stepmother was sitting cross-legged on the wooden platform, scrolling on her phone. Seeing him, she snapped irritably. Out drinking again? Back this late? But before she could finish, his hand slammed down on the table with a thunderous bang. What did you just do to my daughter, Huh? The stepmother flinched but quickly tried to defend herself. I didn't do anything. That brat was being insolent. I just disciplined her. She didn't get to finish. Her husband roared, his voice a mix of drunkenness and fury. I heard everything. You force her to beg, treat her like a servant, and now you tear up her mother's photo? Do you even have a heart anymore? Years of suppressed anger finally exploded. In his drunken grief, he raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. The sharp smack echoed through the house, freezing everything in an instant. Stunned by the unexpected blow, the stepmother collapsed to the floor, clutching her cheek with wide, furious eyes. Soon, she began wailing dramatically, slapping the ground like a spoiled child. Oh heavens! I suffer so much. I married you only to be beaten like this. Does anyone care about me anymore? She cried loudly, throwing things around and cursing at the top of her lungs. Then, in a fit of anger, she stormed into the bedroom, shoving clothes into her bag while screaming. I'm leaving. I'm going back to my mother's house. Let's see how you and your daughter survive without me. Through the heavy rain, she dragged her suitcase to the gate, sobbing and cursing, leaving behind her drunken husband slumped on the floor, and Sam still crying uncontrollably in the kitchen. The house suddenly grew eerily quiet after the chaos. The steady sound of rain outside was like a lullaby to wounds still bleeding inside. Clad with rain, Sam curled up in a corner of the kitchen, her hands covering her face, tears mingling with the rain, her sobs unending. Though her stepmother had left, her heart was a storm of mixed emotions, sadness, pain, exhaustion, and a faint sense of relief, like a heavy weight had momentarily lifted. Her father sat silently, immobilized by drink, but in his foggy eyes lay a heavy, unmistakable regret. He knew that his weakness all these years had pushed his daughter into a corner of relentless suffering. Broken heart that night, in the damp, dimly lit kitchen, father and daughter sat quietly, each lost in their own pain. But amid the night rain, for the first time in a long while, they shared the same deep sorrow, for the mother they had lost, and for the years of injustice Sam had endured.
Xin chào mọi người, rất vui được gặp mọi người trong video của mình. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video ngày hôm nay của mình nha. Và câu chuyện của ngày hôm nay mình mang đến cho mọi người đó chính là câu chuyện của cô gái mang tên Lý Tử Sam. Tử Sam sinh ra trong một gia đình có đầy đủ cha và mẹ, nhưng một biến cố xảy đến khi mẹ cô đột ngột qua đời sớm. Và cuộc sống bất hạnh của Tử Sam bắt đầu từ khi cha của cô lấy người mẹ kế và đưa đứa con riêng của bà về chung sống. Từ đó trở đi, Tử Sam là nguồn thu nhập chính. Cô phải kiếm tiền và thậm chí làm tất cả các công việc nhà cho hai mẹ con, chỉ để hai mẹ con ngồi chơi và bấm điện thoại. Nhưng như thế vẫn chưa đủ cho người mẹ kế hài lòng. Bà ta luôn liên tục đánh đập và chửi mắng Tử Sam. Liệu cuộc sống của Tử Sam sẽ như thế nào? Mời mọi người đón xem ở những video tiếp theo. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video của mình nha. Xin chào mọi người.